Sachs in the Morning. Sports, money, life. Steve Sachs.
Hi, Steve Sachs here with Sachs in the Morning, and really excited about having you with us today because today is Thursday and we have our long-form guest that I think you're going to be really excited to hear from. This young lady is currently ranked number 22 by the WTA. In 2017, she was a U.S. Open finalist, and in January, she was a semifinalist at the Australian Open. And wait till you hear about her foundation called the Kindness Wins Foundation that she founded, and I was able to speak at this foundation just last week. It was just amazing, all the great things that they do, and she's going to tell you all about that. She's going to tell you about the unbelievable baker that she is and the passion that she has for that, and you know what it's like to uproot your life as a young kid because she wanted to be a great tennis player, and boy, did she accomplish that. So with that, let's bring her in. Madison Keys, great to be with you today. Steve Sachs here with Sachs in the Morning, and today we have a very special guest on the podcast, and we're so happy to have Madison Keys here, who is one of the best tennis players in the world, and she's much more than that, as you're going to find out. Madison, I think, ranked 26 in the world right now, just an unbelievable player, and so we want to get into that a little bit. But Madison, thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Now, it seems that your family didn't come from deep into tennis. Now, I know your dad was a really good athlete, but how did you get so inspired to take up tennis?
No one in my family plays tennis at all. I mean, to this day, they still can't play tennis. They have zero desire to pick up tennis rackets.
Really?
But I actually started because I happened to be walking through my parents' bedroom when they had Wimbledon on, and I was 4 years old, and I wanted the tennis dress that Venus Williams had on.
So it was more the aesthetics and the dress that really attracted you to tennis.
Absolutely. I had no idea what tennis was. I believe I referred to it as the game with sticks.
I love it.
Had no idea, and the only way I was allowed to get a tennis outfit was if I actually played the sport. So here we are 23 years later.
Wow, that is amazing. It's just the outfit was one that attracted you to it. Now, moving to Florida from Illinois, you started training at the Everett Tennis Academy. I believe John Everett, Chrissy Everett's brother, was your coach. How inspirational was he, and how deep did he get you into tennis as far as not only the physical part of the game, but the mindset as well?
He was a massive part of how my game is today. And honestly, all of the coaches that helped me at Everett Tennis Academy were, really a big part of the reason why I am here today. They changed a lot of my just fundamentals and things like that. And then to be able to work with John, and he obviously had his sister come around all of the time, and Chrissy would hit with us. And I was also able to practice a lot with Jenny Brady, who just had a phenomenal year a couple years ago. So, just kind of all of those factors were so important in getting me to the point of actually thinking I can, in fact, be a professional tennis player.
Right. What was it like to hit around with Chrissy Everett? It
was great. Chrissy is, to this day, still one of the most competitive people I've ever met. She was very competitive. I think the last time we ever really played points, I think I was 13 or 14. And it was like, as soon as she thought that I could, it would maybe flip and I was getting a little bit too fast or strong or anything, it was like, nope, we're done.
Right. I mean, Madison, we talk a lot about hard work and there's no shortcuts. And, you and I both, we have that in common because we've obviously lived with the professional athlete, thing in our lives. But I know what it's like for a baseball player. I'm curious about tennis. I suspect there's probably no difference. How much dedication and hard work does it take to be a professional tennis player?
It takes a lot. And obviously I only know tennis, so I don't really know what fully goes into all other sports, but from 10 years old, I started practicing Monday through Friday. We would hit for about 4 hours a day, plus an hour of fitness.
Wow.
I had to fit school into that somehow.
Yes.
So it was usually wake up in the morning, start your day at about 7:30. We would go until about 11, and then that's when the big chunk of schoolwork would get done in the middle of the day, and then start again and go 3 to 5.
Wow. I thought we had it tough as baseball players. I mean, I can imagine what it's like to be, especially that much demand on a young lady with school and all that must be just, what must have been just really, really a tough thing. But Madison, when I grew up, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. That's all I wanted to do. And I grew up watching guys like, Nolan Ryan and guys that I had to face that were the Hall of Fame pitchers, Don Sutton and all these guys. And then I get into the big leagues and they're actually standing 60 feet, 6 inches away from me and they're trying to get me out. I mean, it was just mind boggling how facing these guys. Tell us what it was like to play against the Williams sisters. This has got to be something.
It is just as intimidating as you think it would be.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, they smoked the tennis ball. What was that like?
Do. It's honestly, I think I've played Venus at this point maybe 3 or 4 times. And I've been able to get a win against Venus. I've been on the receiving end of losses only with Serena Williams, who is phenomenal. I mean, I think the biggest part of their games are just their power and their ability to really just kind of take the racket out of your hand.
Wow. Okay, so their athleticism, but I guess you can see it. It comes off the screen pretty strongly. But I guess they've got a lot of determination and a lot of stick-to-itiveness, right? Pretty good competitors, I would say.
I would argue that they're the best competitors in a lot of sports,
Wow.
especially to be continuing to be at an incredibly high level 20 plus years after first starting and continuing to be at the top of the game. I don't think you see that very often.
Yeah. Madison, you are a great role model for everybody, and especially with young women. And you have participated in an organization called Fearlessly Girl. Tell us about that organization and what they do.
Fearlessly Girl was the first kind of organization that I got involved in, and it was a really easy fit for me because in my mind it was a bit like being an older sister, and I have 2 younger sisters, so I felt like that was kind of just a natural fit for me. But
sure.
I just really felt like, especially in high school, middle school, it's really hard being a girl, and to have to try to combat all of that and feel like you're the only one that's going through it and no one else understands, and you kind of get sucked into this little hole of girl world that's really difficult. And I, on top of that, had the experience of having to deal with Twitter and Instagram and things like that, and I know a lot of girls and women are dealing with that on a daily basis. So
sure,
I really wanted to just kind of talk to them and remind them that they're not alone, and just give them the opportunity to talk. And being able to do that in front of their peers, they really opened up pretty quickly and started realizing that they were all in very similar situations and going through a lot. And I felt like it was such a great organization that got girls talking to each other and really trying to push to be nicer to one another just because they didn't know what was going on.
I think that's great. And, recently I was a speaker at the, at foundation that very much about. You're the founder of the Kindness Wins Foundation. And I loved being there. I had such a great time, Madison. This was just obviously, last week, and it was such a fun thing. And tell us about the genesis of the Kindness Wins Foundation. I mean, you must be so proud of this. The event was absolutely off the chart. It was run so well, and there was so much goodness throughout the whole place there. And I just loved being there. There's so much positivity just running out of people. And tell us about the genesis of the Kindness Wins Foundation. We have the shirts on today too, by the way.
Yeah, it really all just kind of stemmed from obviously my work with Fearlessly Girl. I had so many women and men who kept reaching out and saying, I'm a grown person who goes to work every day, and we
Mhm.
need some of these messages. And
Mhm.
it really just made me want to kind of just amplify what we were saying and doing and reach more people. And I also know that it's really difficult on the athlete side to start a foundation. It's
Mm.
not exactly something that you can just wake up and do one day. There's, time and money and planning and all of that goes into it. And I think that stops a lot of athletes from doing, their passion
Right.
projects and things like that. So I kind of wanted to bridge the gap of both of those things and create a foundation that really just tries to spread good, happy, positive
Mhm.
feelings and messages, but also give athletes that ability to kind of just jump into something without having to set up their own
Mhm.
foundation and go through all of those hoops. So it started like that, and then obviously now we have the kindness wins medals,
Yes.
and we're moving forward trying to fundraise and get some more money so that we can obviously provide grants and do more really great things. And
Mhm.
I think everyone loves obviously great people, and everyone loves sports, and as athletes I think it's just such an easy thing to put together and keep it kind of in that world.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many stories there that night. Talk about a tearjerker. I mean, there was plenty of them everywhere. Maybe you can give us a couple of ones that you have really taken notice to that have stood out to you. And I mean, you've brought so much to people's lives with this foundation, Madison. It was amazing just being there one night. Give us some examples of some of the things that people would say, or some of the things that people would do when they, like you said, give away these medals, and they acknowledge people in their lives that have been really instrumental. So which ones kind of come to mind for you?
There's been a handful of the ones I've given out personally. I just recently gave one out to James Blake, who is a phenomenal person on
Mhm.
top of all of his great achievements in tennis. But just on a personal level, he's been amazing for me coming on the tour. And I remember when I got fourth place at the 2016 Olympics, and I was devastated.
Mm,
And he had been in the same position, and he was the first person to talk to me, reach out, and just make sure I was doing okay because he had been in the same position.
yeah.
But then there's also these phenomenal girls, and I'm absolutely blanking on their foundation name, and I'm gonna come back to it and give you the
No
name of
worries.
it. But they are phenomenal. They're
Yeah.
sisters, and they get people to donate gently used clothes,
Oh,
rackets, shoes, all of that, and then they send
cool.
them all over the world.
That's
I
amazing.
mean,
Yeah.
South America, I think they've started sending them to countries in Africa. They send them to,
Oh,
I mean, all over the world. And it's just, tennis is such a great sport, but it's
mhm.
obviously expensive and you need a lot of things for it. So
Yes.
I was so proud to give them a medal just because they've
Oh,
done
that's
such great
great.
work.
That's great. Madison, you see that as it is now. Where do you see kindness wins like in the next 5, 10 years? How many places can you reach? And avenues like this can make that extended. So how big do you want this thing to get? How big can it get?
I would love for it to get, I mean, as big as humanly possible, honestly. My dream for it is really to be able to give grants and provide, people with accessibility to sports. I know Oksana has been very
Right.
vocal about wanting
Oksana
to help.
Masters. Mhm.
Yes, Oksana Mathers, who's one of
Mathers.
the most incredible people I've ever met.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
Unbelievable athlete. And I know, her mission is she really wants to help other people get into sports and have the access to do whatever they want to do. And I obviously want as many people as possible to be able to get into tennis and support that. And I think, we're really just trying to build so that we can help as many people as we can.
Yeah. Madison, I want to go back for a second, and I wanted you to describe more about what the foundation does and how people can follow it and donate to the foundation.
The foundation is, at this point, we're really, in the building phase. Obviously, everyone has had some issues the last couple of years with COVID, and trying
Mhm.
to grow things during COVID was a bit difficult, but it seems as though we're getting the world's kind of opening back up. But
Yes.
we are trying to just spread kindness, honestly. And as broad as that sounds, just the small little daily things that people can do that bring smiles to people's faces. And I love seeing sportsmanship in sports and things like that. And we're at this point, obviously, trying to have things like we just did in Denver where we can fundraise, but also just constantly showing people all of the good things that are happening on the daily. I think there's been a lot of obviously terrible things that have happened and are going on. And I think a lot of times that's what is on our news. Like that's what we just are getting fed by the news all the time. And I think it's really important that we show all of the small things and big things that people are doing just to help one another out, and they're not looking for recognition. So being able to shine a light on all of those things, I think, is really important.
Yeah. Madison, I was wondering, some of your contemporaries, people you're playing against in tennis or with, how many of them are involved in foundations, something like you have, centered here with Kindness Wins? How many other people do you think, are most of them involved, or do they have their own foundations, or how do they do that?
I would say on the tours, there are a handful that have their own foundations and organizations, but like I said, I think it's really difficult to start that process and create your own foundation. But I know Elena Svitolina has one, Andy Roddick has one, Chris Everett has one, Sloane Stevens also has her own. So there are quite a few out there.
Good. Well, I want to get to this one spot before we have no more time, and I got to ask you about the baking. Okay, I know that you're a world-class tennis player, but you're also a world-class baker. You've been in competition before. I know you had one when you were 13 years old, and you got to tell me how that turned out. You got to tell me about the Halloween leftovers. You got to tell me about your favorite cupcake. So go ahead and just tell us about baking, because I know that you wanted to go there eventually.
I love baking. I've loved baking for a really long time. And as you said, when I was 13, we had a tennis tournament, and it was right after Halloween, and there was a competition for who could have the best baked goods, essentially.
Right.
And my mom had been basically trying to get rid of all of the candy in the house slowly but surely.
Right.
So I thought, what better way than to basically, throw the kitchen sink at a cupcake and put all of our Halloween candy into it. And
wow.
I won. So
you did. So you threw all the Halloween candy into a cupcake. So I'm just, what I'm hearing here is you had what? Caramel, chocolate, peppermint. I mean, did it run the gamut, or how big was this cupcake? I mean, kids go out and get Halloween bags full of it. So how big was this cupcake? I
think we ended up making a couple of dozen, honestly, but I would say that the sugar rush that you got from eating one of those cupcakes was probably very high. So it probably would have been a great, pre-match snack. Yeah.
Have you thought about bringing some of this baked goods to maybe, do you ever think about sending all of your baked goods to some of your competition? Might give you a little bit of an edge, come time for the match. I mean, who knows? This could be a nice weapon for you.
If you can think of a way for me to travel with a kitchen and an oven and all of that, I think that's a great idea.
Madison, if you weren't a tennis player, would you ever consider possibly making this your life's conquest, or would you ever think about being a professional baker? Do you love it that much?
I do really love it. I'm not sure if I'm good enough at it. My decorating skills are subpar, so I might have to go into some sort of schooling for that. But
well, let me introduce you to my sister Cheryl. She's the greatest baker I've ever seen. We tell her you got to get your own baking thing. She doesn't want to do it, but she's unreal. So there's people out there that could help you. Believe me, you could start with my sister.
Well, I mean, I could next when I'm done with tennis, I'll ask you for your sister's contact.
Yeah, that's great. So Madison, where does it go now? I mean, you're number 26 in the world. What is your goals right now as it sits in front of you? Like you said, the world's opening up now. People are getting more and freely being able to go and play. And so I got to think that there's going to be more opportunities for you to, get to that life's goal.
I absolutely think that's the case. Obviously, I mean, seeing on TV, our stands are much more full and
Mhm.
fans are back allowed. And I think that's kind of helping all sports. I think a lot of athletes who were competing through COVID were obviously struggling without fans. So to
Mhm.
have all of that back and just be able to really appreciate everything that we were missing out on is amazing.
Yeah. We saw the not too distant situation with Roger Federer and him not being able to play. And I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan of this guy. I think he's such a classy guy. That whole situation there made me I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he was just standing up for, what he believed in. And, it can be a touchy situation, but COVID is certainly nothing to mess around with. That's for sure. But I just wish the guy would have had a chance to play. Everybody's a big fan of his too. You know what I mean? So,
I hope that we get to see Fed play at least one more time.
yeah. What happened? Madison, can you hear me?
Oh, I think she's trying to say Novak,
Oh, that's
not
right.
Roger.
Yeah. What did I say? I said, okay. So you know
Roger.
what the great thing about this is? we get to edit it. Yeah. Yeah. I meant Federer's like the guy that's been around forever, right? Yeah. Djokovic. How do you say his name? Djokovic? Yeah.
Djokovic.
Djokovic. Yeah. And so the whole thing with Djokovic and him not being able to play because of the COVID deal, and we all know COVID's nothing to mess around with. But I felt for the guy. I mean, Djokovic is just a phenomenal player. Everybody's a big fan of his. So how did that kind of sit with you?
I think it was a tough situation, obviously, but at the end of the day, it's government rules. And if
Right.
government rules are laid out in their certain way, then it is what it is, and you just have to follow them. It was obviously a very messy situation. It became much bigger than I think anyone intended it to be. But I
Mm,
do think the good news is with everything opening back up and things being a little bit less restricted and things like that, he's going to have the opportunity to play a more normal season moving forward.
yeah, I hear you. I was curious about how much your family gets to attend some of your matches or overall, because I mean, it's got to be tough traveling all over the world. I know my parents and my family tried to come as much as they possibly could. And my gosh, we took them everywhere. I mean, they just were like part of the luggage, they just came. And so I was curious on how much your family gets a chance to come and see you play.
Not that often. My sisters and mom have come to Wimbledon one time. My mom came to the French Open one time. My grandparents actually drove to Cincinnati when I actually won the title there, which was great. So they got to see me play live
Mm,
for the first time in a really long time. But
mhm.
we're a bit too international, unfortunately, to
Sure.
send the family all over the world.
Yeah, Madison, I was curious too because we talk about this a lot on the podcast doing a reassessment. It's kind of like doing a check. You get to one certain part of your career, and okay, that's good, but now I've got to kind of up my game. I got to raise the bar of expectancy. I got to, what type of things do you do, and how often do you do that? For instance, where do you see yourself right now?
I think right now I'm in a pretty good position. I don't think I've ever won this many matches at this point in a season, and especially after last year. I mean last year was probably my toughest year in the last 7 or 8 as
Mm,
just emotionally, results wise, it just wasn't doing as well, and it was really kind of taking the enjoyment out of tennis for me. And I made a really big commitment at the end of that year and going into our preseason to try to find why I love tennis again and find that enjoyment. And
mhm.
I think not coincidentally, it's when I've done the best that I have in a really long time. And more than that, just really enjoying every part of it.
Mm-hmm. So, which tournament is next for you, Madison?
I am going to Madrid this
Wow.
weekend. And after that, I play in Rome and then Paris.
Wow. That is amazing. I mean, for you, I mean, does it ever just like hit you and say, oh my gosh, I'm one of the most coveted tennis players in the world and I'm traveling to all these places. I mean, you came from Illinois, you went to Florida, and now you're conquering the world. I mean, you're going everywhere. Does it ever you ever kind of have to pinch yourself and think, man, this is something that started from a dream?
Definitely. To think about where I came from. I mean, I'm from a really small town in Illinois, and we have one tennis club. So to think that all these years later that I could be doing what I'm doing and travel all over the world is really a dream come true.
Yeah. How about your favorite city, Madison, that you played in? I mean, are you about to go to one of those that you've been to before, or what's your favorite city?
I would say every time I get asked that question, a lot of the time it's based around food for me.
Yeah.
Charleston, South Carolina
Oh,
has
one of
some
my
phenomenal
favorites too.
food.
Absolutely one of my favorite places ever. I stayed at the Vendu Hotel. I can tell you, they have the bikes out front. I love Charleston. Go ahead.
Charleston is at the top of my list, along with Rome. I think Rome is one of the greatest cities in the world.
Well, I'm going to make it a point. I've told myself that now I hadn't had a vacation in 10 years. I'm going to take 2 vacations a year. One of the places I'm going is to Italy. I'm going to go to Rome. And my family's from Italy, my mother's side. So I'm going to go to the village where our family started. So I can't wait to do that. But I've heard Rome is just absolutely amazing. So I'm going to be sure to do that. I wanted to ask you one more, if I may. I wanted to ask you about the Aussie Open. And you know, that's a pretty amazing thing. Yeah, I think that you were in the finals there at the Aussie Open. And when was that? Like in February?
I made the semifinals of the Australian Open in, I think it was January. All of the months at this point have blurred together, but
Wow, that's tremendous.
it was great. It was the first time I've made the semifinals, I think it was 6 years. So it was it was really a dream of a tournament for me, and just to get to play in front of the Aussie fans again, because I missed it the year
Wow.
before. It was so great. And then unfortunately I lost to Ash Barty, who then went on to win the trophy. But it was a really, really great tournament. And I love playing in front of Melbourne just because they're some of the best fans.
Yes, I've been to Melbourne. That's the only place in Australia I went. I absolutely loved it. Madison, got to ask you one final question here. You know, tennis is such a regal sport. I mean, you know, you shake hands with the guy, the what do you call it, the line judge, and you shake hands with him, and everything is so nice. You know, baseball, we're in the dugout, we're swearing it, we're doing all that stuff, we're kicking things and throwing them around. And I mean, do you have trouble kind of, you know, controlling yourself? Do sometimes you want to just, you know, drop a dirty word once in a while? Or I mean, how do you stay so nice all the time when you got such a just an intense competition? Because that's the way tennis is, the way I see it. How do you stay so sweet?
The key is to know where all the microphones are. So as long as you know where the microphones are,
that's right,
and they can't pick up anything that you're saying, then
right.
I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to get fined. So you try to be on your best behavior.
Right. Yeah. You know, unfortunately, we see a couple guys go out there where they slam the racket against the guy that's called the line judge and all that. And, you know, that people look at him and go, ooh, that's terrible. You know, I mean, you got to see what we do in the dugout in baseball. It's a little bit worse. But anyway, Madison, I want to thank you so much for being on today. And God, we're just such big fans of yours. We're a fan of you as a player, as a person, and certainly what you do with the Kindness Wins Foundation is just amazing. So we're going to be pulling for you. When we expect big things of people that you really care about. So we're expecting you to go out and win some huge tournaments now.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you for being with us today, Madison. Madison Keys right there, ladies and gentlemen. If you like what you heard today, please give us a positive review, subscribe, and share the program. Also, be sure to listen to my Sax in the Morning shorts 3 days a week for a couple of minutes of uplifting suggestions to get your day off to a great start. Our music is performed by my adorable niece, Elena Jane. And remember, to reach your goals and your dreams, follow your emotional heart.